When I found the house listing online, it looked too good to be true. The photos showed a tidy little duplex with ivy crawling up the sides, a small fenced-in yard, and windows that actually let light in. Best of all, the rent was absurdly low. Dirt cheap, in fact. I'd spent the last 6 months bouncing between overpriced shared apartments, tiptoeing around mismatched roommates, and rationing instant noodles. This place looked like peace, and at that price, I didn't hesitate. The landlord was a tight-lipped woman in her 60s named Ms. Harrow. She wore a thick wool coat, even though it was early spring, and she smelled faintly of old paper and rubbing alcohol. When I asked if there was anything about the house I should know, she just squinted and said, "Keep to yourself. You'll be fine." That should have been my first clue. I signed the lease on the spot. I barely skimmed it. Pages of legalese and one oddly worded clause buried near the end. Tenant acknowledges the necessity of nightly interior security protocols and agrees to comply without exception. I assumed it was boilerplate, something about locks, old neighborhood, whatever. The day I moved in, the weather couldn't decide between drizzling and outright rain, so it settled on a steady mist. My little hatchback wheezed under the weight of boxes and bags, and by the time I got everything inside, my clothes were soaked through, and my shoes were caked in mud. The house was cleaner than I expected. Dated, but clean. The floors creaked. The walls were an off-white yellow that probably used to be beige, and the kitchen tiles had a few hairline cracks. But there was a warmth to it, like the place had been waiting for someone. The basement door was the only thing that felt wrong. It was at the end of a short hallway near the back of the kitchen, flush with the wall, painted the same dull color as the trim. If I hadn't been looking for it, I might have missed it entirely. Unlike the rest of the house, the basement door had 4 locks, 2 deadbolts, a latch, and a sliding bolt that looked like it belonged on a barn door. All of them faced inward. I laughed when I saw it, out loud, alone in the kitchen, the kind of laugh that tries to swallow unease. Maybe the last tenant was paranoid, or maybe they were hiding something down there. I didn't plan to open it. I spent the rest of the day unpacking the essentials: clothes, toiletries, a coffee maker, my laptop. As the afternoon faded into evening, I set up my bed and laid back, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, really quiet. No traffic noise, no creaking from upstairs neighbors, not even bird song. When the knock came, it was so sudden and sharp that I jolted upright. I cracked the door open and found 2 people on my porch. A tall guy with shaggy hair and a girl wearing a denim jacket over a band tee. Both around my age, maybe a little older. They looked friendly enough. "Hey," the guy said, sticking out a hand. "I'm Connor. This is Ray. You just moved in, right?" "Yeah," I said. I didn't offer a handshake. I wasn't feeling particularly social. "Cool. Just wanted to say hi. We're in the unit next door." Ray leaned against the porch railing and pulled a cigarette from behind her ear. "Has she told you the rules yet?" Connor winced. "Ray, what?" She lit the cigarette, exhaled smoke, and gave me a half smile. "She's gonna find out. Better if she hears it from us." I narrowed my eyes. "What rules?" They exchanged a glance. "Nothing major," Connor said quickly. "Just, if you hear anything at night, don't go poking around." Ray took another drag. "Especially not the basement." I crossed my arms. "Why?" "Because," she said, flicking ash over the edge of the porch. "That's where it talks from." I blinked. "What?" Connor stepped in. "Ignore her, she's messing with you." "I'm not," Ray said. "You'll see. You'll hear it, eventually." I didn't respond. I just stared at them until Connor gave me an apologetic shrug and nudged Ray to leave. "Welcome to the neighborhood," he said, and then they were gone. That night, the house felt different, colder. like it was holding its breath. I tried to sleep, but every creak made me jump. I kept my bedroom door open, just so I could see down the hall from my bed. The basement door sat quietly at the end, locked tight, unmoving. At some point past midnight, I finally started to drift off. My body relaxed, my breathing slowed. Then I heard it. A low hum, mechanical, distant but steady, like a generator or a big industrial fan. It wasn't coming from outside. It was under me, from the basement. I sat up in bed, heart thudding. I told myself it was nothing. Old houses made noise. Maybe the heater was kicking in. Maybe it was pipes. That was plausible. That was believable. But it wasn't the sound that unsettled me. It was the way it made my chest vibrate. Like the floorboards were resonating with something I couldn't hear fully. Like the sound was meant to get inside me. I lay back down and pulled the covers up to my chin, but sleep didn't come. Not really. The next morning, I checked the thermostat. The heat hadn't turned on. When I stepped outside, Ray was sitting on her porch, mug in hand. She looked at me and smiled. "Did you hear it?" I didn't answer. I just went back inside. Later that week, I met a few more neighbors, all around the same age, all oddly cordial, like they were trying to act normal but couldn't quite remember how. When I brought up the basement to a guy named Theo, he just shook his head. "Don't ask about it," he said. "Don't listen to it, and don't open it." "I wasn't planning on it," I said. He stared at me for a long time. "Even if it begs." I didn't know what to say to that. The nights that followed were worse. The hum came back every time, louder. I tried earplugs, I tried music, I tried sleep aids. Nothing worked. It would fade in and out, like it was breathing. And sometimes, just before it stopped, I thought I heard something else underneath it. Something faint. A voice, muffled, indistinct, but human. It said my name. I know how that sounds. I know how crazy it is. But I swear to God, it said my name. The night after that, I found a note slid under my door. "Don't trust what you hear. The house lies." It wasn't signed. I didn't sleep at all. And when the humming came back, I pressed my pillow over my ears and begged myself not to listen. The next few days passed in a haze of tension I couldn't quite explain. Every hour spent in that house felt like walking on the edge of something sharp. Each creak in the floorboards, every whisper of wind against the window panes made my skin crawl. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was just reacting to the stress of moving and the awkward welcome from the neighbors, but the unease clung to me like mildew in the corners of a damp basement. The humming returned each night. It always came at a different time, just long enough after midnight that it felt deliberate, like it was waiting until I dropped my guard. Sometimes it stayed low and steady. Other nights it fluctuated, rising and falling in eerie pulses, like the slow drag of breath from something sleeping beneath the house. Still, the basement door never moved. The locks stayed in place. But I started noticing subtle changes. Scratches appeared near the baseboard, too deep and too fresh to have been from any previous tenant. A crack formed in the doorframe. And once, when I pressed my palm flat against the door just to convince myself it was still there, I felt warmth. Not the kind that came from radiators or heat vents. This was a body heat. Living heat. I stopped touching the door after that. Ray showed up on my porch again that Thursday evening, this time without Connor. She was smoking, as usual, the cherry tip of her cigarette flickering like a warning light in the growing dusk. "You want to sit?" she asked, gesturing to the step beside her. I hesitated, then sat down. "Connor's mad at me," she said casually. "Says I shouldn't have told you about the basement." "You didn't tell me much." "Didn't I?" She blew smoke toward the street and tucked her hair behind her ear. "You've been hearing it though, right?" The hum, I nodded slowly. "Yeah, every night." Ray was quiet for a moment. Then she said, It'll start talking soon. Don't listen." I didn't respond. I wasn't sure what to say. There was a quiet desperation in her voice, like someone giving a warning not because they wanted to scare me, but because they didn't want to be the only one who knew. "Has it said your name yet?" I turned my head sharply to look at her. She didn't smile. She wasn't joking. "How do you know that?" "It said mine, too." I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, fully dressed with the lights on. At around 2 a.m., the humming began, slow and steady like always. I curled up beneath the blanket and stared at the ceiling, breathing shallowly. But then I heard it. Something new, just beneath the hum. "Eli." A whisper, my name, clear, right against the floor. I bolted upright. For a moment I couldn't move, paralyzed with some primal fear I hadn't known I was capable of. It felt like being hunted, not chased, but watched, lured. The voice came again. "Eli, please, please help me. It's so dark. I'm cold." It wasn't just a voice. It was a familiar voice. My cousin, Chris. He'd died in a car accident 3 years ago. The way he used to talk, how he always dragged out the last word in his sentences, especially when he wanted something. This thing mimicked him perfectly. I threw the blanket off and stumbled into the hallway. The basement door sat silently at the end, locks still in place, but the voice continued. "Come on, Eli. It's me. It's Chris. I'm stuck down here. You have to help me, please." It sounded like him. Not just the voice, but the inflections, the rhythm of how he spoke. But I knew it couldn't be. I'd seen the casket. I'd stood at his funeral. Still, my hand moved. I reached for the latch, only to stop short at the sound of my phone vibrating on the kitchen counter. The screen was lit up. No number. Just the words, "Do not open the door." I backed away from the hallway, hands shaking. The voice didn't stop. If anything, it got louder, angrier. The begging turned to sobbing, and the sobbing gave way to accusations. "You let me die. You didn't answer my call. You were too busy." I covered my ears and sat on the floor, rocking slightly until it stopped. The next morning, I walked to Connor and Ray's place. I didn't knock. I just stood in front of their screen door until Connor noticed me from the kitchen and came outside. He didn't look surprised. "You heard him," he said. I nodded. Connor sat down on the step. "It always starts with someone you lost, someone who matters." What is it?" "We don't know." Ray came out and leaned against the doorframe. "Some say it's a trap, a predator, that it pulls memories out of your head, uses them to reel you in. Others think it's not real at all, that the house does something to you, gets in your mind, makes you see and hear things." "And the basement?" Ray looked at Connor. He gave her a nod. "We've never opened it," she said. "Not since we moved in. But a guy did, before us." "What happened?" "He was gone the next day, room still locked from the inside. Landlord never explained anything, just moved someone else in a few weeks later." I felt sick. "Why doesn't anyone leave?" I asked. "Why don't you?" Connor looked at Ray, then back at me. "We tried. The lease is binding. We broke it once, moved out for a month. Ray got a job 3 towns over. I crashed on a couch. Thought we were free. But we started hearing the humming wherever we went, first in our dreams, then the walls, then the floors. It followed us," Ray said softly. "It doesn't like when you leave. It reminds you." I couldn't speak. My mouth had gone dry. "Don't open it," Connor said. "No matter what it says, no matter who it pretends to be." That night, I triple-checked every lock on the basement door. I pushed a chair in front of it, though I knew it would do nothing if something really wanted to get out. But I needed the illusion of security. The humming came late. I thought I'd maybe avoided it, but just after 3, it started again. This time, the voice didn't beg. It sang. A low lullaby my mother used to hum when I was sick. I cried, quietly, into my pillow. And I didn't move. At sunrise, the locks were still in place, but one of them had been turned halfway. And I knew I hadn't touched it. It wanted me to finish unlocking it. It wanted me to think I already had. The next day, I bought new locks. When I returned, there was another note under my door. Midnight is the limit. After that, it gets stronger. Lock it tight. Stay awake. That night, I invited Connor and Ray over. I needed someone else in the house, someone who knew. We sat in the living room with every light on, Ray curled on the couch, Connor leaning back in my creaky desk chair. No one said much. We didn't need to. When the humming began, none of us flinched. It was like hearing a siren now, so constant, so expected. But the voice that came with it was different. It wasn't one of ours. None of us knew it. It was a child. I'm scared. Please. I don't know where my mommy is. Can you help me find her? Ray paled. Her hand found Connor's. He didn't move. The voice began to cry, softly, pathetically. Please don't leave me down here. It's dark. I don't want to be alone. The sound tore at me. I curled my hands into fists. This wasn't fair. This was cruel. The crying grew sharper. A scream cut through the hum, a child's wail, animal and panicked. Then silence. The hum faded. The house went still. We didn't speak. Ray reached for her lighter and lit a cigarette with trembling fingers. Connor's voice was barely audible. They're getting smarter. By the third week, the house no longer felt like mine. I moved through it like a guest, careful and quiet, as though I didn't want to disturb something that had already made its presence known. My routine grew rigid. Wake up late, kill hours with coffee and old movies, talk with Ray or Connor if they stopped by, and then, as evening approached, I started watching the clock. I stopped going out, stopped answering calls from friends back home. The world beyond the property line felt unreal, like it belonged to a different life that no longer had space for me. Every night ended the same way, checking the locks, pulling the chair in front of the basement door, and lying in bed with my eyes wide open, listening. There was a rhythm to it now. Not just the humming and the voices, but the house itself. It creaked the same way every night, like it was stretching. The radiator moaned at the same time, even though I never touched the settings. The pipes groaned like they were mimicking speech. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to keep me on edge, to remind me it was there. Ray came by one afternoon with a paper bag of donuts and 2 iced coffees. Her eyes were shadowed with exhaustion, but she still managed a half smile as she handed me the coffee. "You look like hell," she said, settling onto my couch without waiting to be invited. "Thanks," I muttered. "You're glowing." She snorted and stretched her legs out on the cushion. "Connor's not sleeping again. Says he heard his brother's voice 2 nights in a row." I sat across from her, donut in hand, but no appetite to match. I didn't know he had a brother. He doesn't talk about him. Died of an overdose a few years back. They weren't close, but still. It's like the thing knows what cuts deepest. We sat in silence for a while, the low hum of the fridge the only sound. It was almost peaceful. Almost. But Ray's fingers wouldn't stop drumming against her coffee cup, and I couldn't stop glancing toward the hallway. "Have you ever thought about opening it?" I asked finally. She looked at me sharply. Never. Not even just to see? To figure out what's really down there? You've heard what it does. You've heard what it says. And it's only going to get worse. Curiosity is how it gets you. Don't think it hasn't tried with me. I nodded, ashamed of the question. But the thought lingered. That night, I joined Connor and Ray at their place for dinner. It felt almost normal, like how friends used to hang out before all of this. Ray cooked a lazy stir-fry, and we sat at their little wobbly kitchen table, plates balanced on our laps. Halfway through eating, a knock sounded at the door. Connor stiffened. Ray dropped her fork. "It's too early," I said. My eyes darted to the wall clock, 9:37 p.m. "It's not it," Connor said, though his voice lacked conviction. "It doesn't knock." Ray stood slowly, crossed to the door, and peered through the peephole. "It's Theo," she muttered, opening it. Theo, one of the other tenants in the row of townhouses, stepped inside quickly, his face pale and lips tight. "I need you guys to come. Something's wrong with Isla." My stomach dropped. I'd met Isla a few times. She lived in the last unit, always quiet, always kept to herself. She looked barely 20, with soft features and a nervous energy that reminded me of a stray cat. "What happened?" Ray asked. Theo's voice trembled. She opened the door." We ran. The sky was dark, but no humming yet, no voice. Just the heavy silence that preceded a storm. Isla's door was ajar when we arrived. Theo pushed it open, and the four of us stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Damp earth and something sharp underneath, like copper or burnt hair. The living room lights were on, and everything looked untouched except for the open basement door at the end of the hallway. It gaped like a mouth. No lights inside, just a yawning darkness that felt alive. "Isla?" Connor called. No answer. Theo swallowed hard. She said she heard her sister, said she had to go down there, that she couldn't ignore her again. I tried to stop her, but she was different, like she wasn't really listening. Ray walked toward the stairs, peering down. No light, no noise. "We have to go after her," I said, but even as I said it, my legs refused to move. Connor grabbed my arm. "Number, we don't. She made her choice. We can't just leave her. We don't know what's down there. You think you're helping, but you're playing into its hands." Ray looked torn. Her hands clenched at her sides, her jaw locked. Theo broke the silence. "I already tried. I stepped on the first stair. It felt wrong, like the air wasn't right, like I was underwater. And I heard something behind me, whispering, saying my name. I ran." We stood there for another minute. Then Ray reached over and shut the basement door. She locked the bolt, then turned to Theo. "She's gone." No one argued. That night, no humming came. The absence was worse. The quiet felt thick and heavy. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, waiting for something, anything, but the air remained still. I should have felt relieved, but I didn't. The next morning, Isla's unit was locked tight again. No police came, no announcement from the landlord. It was like she never existed. Connor called it correctional silence, said it happens when someone breaks the pattern. The system resets. A few days later, Ray and I were smoking on my porch. The air was warm, but I kept getting chills. "You think she's dead?" I asked. Ray flicked ash off her cigarette. "I think she's something else now." "Like what?" She didn't answer. The following week passed in fragments. Ray stopped coming around as much. Connor barely left his unit. I tried reaching out to Theo, but he wasn't answering his door anymore. The townhouses felt emptier. I didn't know if people were avoiding each other or if they were just gone. I started to get dreams, vivid ones. The basement door wide open. A staircase that spiraled downward into something not made of wood or stone, but of muscle and bone. I'd walk down, step by step, my breath echoing, and hear laughter. A chorus of it. All the voices I'd ever heard from the basement, laughing together. I'd wake drenched in sweat, heart pounding. The night it returned, I wasn't surprised. I was brushing my teeth when the humming began, not the low mechanical buzz I was used to. This one was different, more like a whine, shrill, pained. I turned off the faucet and listened. Then came the voice. It was Isla. "Eli, please. It's me. I didn't mean to. I was just scared. I'm still here. Please, open the door." I backed away from the hallway. You were right. We shouldn't open it. Don't let me stay down here. Don't let it keep me." It sounded like her, but it wasn't her. The voice started crying. "It's dark, Eli. It's cold. It's lonely. I remember you. You were kind. Please, just once, just this once." Then silence. Then screaming. And somewhere beneath that, beneath the rage and pain, I thought I heard something else. Laughter. The locks held. But I didn't sleep. In the morning, I found another note under my door. "You are being watched. It knows you care. Use that against it." There was no name, no explanation, just another warning. I started to wonder if the thing in the basement was ever going to stop pretending to be other people and just show me what it really was. But then again, maybe it already had. It was around the beginning of the 4th week that I stopped pretending I was going to be okay. The house had long since stopped pretending it was just a house. It was more like a presence now. Something with weight and mood and memory. Something that learned. I kept to myself even more. Ray barely visited anymore, and when she did, she seemed distant, distracted. I tried not to take it personally. I think we were all struggling to keep from unraveling. I didn't blame her. The dreams were the worst part. At first, they were just echoes, screams in the dark, staircases stretching downwards, voices humming lullabies I had half forgotten from childhood. But then they started changing. They began to feel real, like last night. I dreamt I was standing outside the basement door, holding a key. I was shaking, crying, whispering to myself not to do it, but my hand moved anyway. When the key turned, I felt something shift behind the door, something heavy and massive, like a train rousing itself from a long slumber. I never saw what was inside, because the moment the door cracked open, I woke up gasping, soaked in sweat. When I got up that morning, there was mud on the soles of my feet. I hadn't left the bed. I checked the locks immediately. All were in place. But my key, the one that fit the top deadbolt, was missing. I found it later in the sink, under a slow stream of cold water. I didn't remember putting it there. That same day, I found a photograph slipped under my door. No note, no message. Just a grainy picture printed on cheap paper. It showed the inside of a hallway, my hallway, with the basement door open. The picture was taken from the perspective of someone standing at the threshold. Inside was just shadow, but there was something else. Something that looked like a foot, pale and bare, just barely visible near the top step. I stared at the photo for a long time before burning it in the kitchen sink. That night, I didn't wait for the hum. I packed a duffel bag and drove. I didn't care where. I just needed distance. I made it as far as the next county, booked a cheap motel with flickering lights and a broken vending machine. I tried to sleep, but the air felt wrong. Thicker somehow. The blankets itched. The hum came anyway. It didn't come through the floor. It came from the ceiling. I lay there, paralyzed, as the sound grew louder, sharper. Then came the voice. "Eli, what are you doing? You think you can run from me? You think I won't find you?" It didn't sound like anyone I knew. It sounded like all of them. Like every voice I'd ever heard behind that door, stacked and twisted and threaded together. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, not to listen, not to respond, just to breathe. The next morning I drove back. When I walked inside, the lights were on. I hadn't left them that way. Ray came by the next day. She didn't knock, just walked in, tossed a pack of cigarettes on the table and said, "We need to talk." She looked worse than I'd ever seen her. Hair tangled, eyes bloodshot, fingers jittery like she hadn't slept in days. "Connor's gone," she said. I blinked. "What?" "He left yesterday, said he couldn't take it anymore. I told him not to, begged him, but he packed a bag and walked out. Didn't even lock his door." "You think it'll follow him too?" She didn't answer, just lit a cigarette and stared out the window. "He said it stopped being about the voices. she continued after a while. Said he started seeing things from when he was a kid, his brother, rooms that didn't exist. I swallowed. What kind of rooms? Like one filled with TVs, playing static, and when he looked close enough, he could see faces in the static, screaming. I didn't say anything. My hands were shaking. That night, the humming didn't come from the basement. It came from the bathroom mirror. I was brushing my teeth when the glass began to vibrate subtly, like someone had struck a tuning fork just beneath the surface. I leaned closer. For a moment, it showed me my reflection, and then it didn't. The version of me in the mirror grinned, a wide, toothy, unnatural grin. Its eyes were too dark, like ink spreading through the whites. It raised a hand and placed it flat against the glass. I stumbled back, toothbrush falling into the sink. When I looked again, it was gone. Just me, pale, trembling, alone. I started searching for answers the next day, not because I thought I could fix it, but because I had to know. Something. Anything. There had to be a thread to pull. I started with the landlord, Ms. Harrow, but when I knocked on the leasing office door, no one answered. The blinds were drawn. The mailbox was crammed with unopened letters. When I peeked inside, the office was dark and empty. No one had seen her in weeks. I checked public records next, county property files, old newspaper clippings, anything I could find. The townhouse complex had been around since the 70s, originally part of a low-income housing project that was shut down after several incidents. The language was vague: disturbances, disappearances, sudden mental breaks. Nothing concrete. No one ever explained what those incidents were. I found a single obituary online. A woman named Sandra Mallory, 27, found dead in her home from what was ruled a psychological collapse. The picture accompanying the article was taken on her front porch, my front porch. I spent hours on forums that night. Strange architecture, hauntings, sleep experiments, psychic parasites. Some of it was nonsense. Some of it made too much sense. One theory that stuck with me came from a thread buried deep in a conspiracy board. It's not a place. It's a filter. A location set up to attract the vulnerable. People with trauma, pain, regret. It feeds off familiarity. It doesn't kill you. It erases you. Consumes your identity until there's nothing left but the echo it leaves behind. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't, because deep down, it felt right. The next night, I got a text. No name, no number, just, "Don't forget who you are. That's how it wins." And a second one. "It knows your name now. It knows your shape. Don't let it wear you." I didn't reply. Instead, I sat in the hallway for hours, staring at the basement door. The humming never came that night. But at exactly 3:03 a.m., my bedroom door creaked open on its own. I'd locked it. I was sure of that. I lay frozen in bed, eyes locked on the hallway. A figure stood in the doorway. My height, my building, same clothes I'd worn yesterday. It didn't move, and neither did I. Eventually, I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, the figure was gone, but the carpet held footprints. The next day, I tried to leave again. I packed faster this time, drove further, stayed in a roadside inn off the highway, miles away. I fell asleep from sheer exhaustion. When I woke, there was a knock at the door. Not a loud one, gentle, rhythmic. I got up and looked through the peephole. It was me, smiling, mouth full of teeth too sharp to be real. I didn't open the door, but in the silence that followed, I heard it whisper, "Eli, let me in." I fell to the floor and cried. I don't know how long I stayed there. When I got back to the house the next day, a new note was waiting. You can't run, but you can endure. You can remember. You are still you. Hold that. It's the only thing that keeps the door closed. It wasn't signed, but I think I knew who left it, or who used to be the one who did. The morning after the mirror, the mud, the texts, and the figure that wore my shape, I stopped pretending there was any hope of a normal life. The walls no longer felt like boundaries, the locks like protection. The house breathed with me, thought with me, waited with me. It knew what I feared. It knew what I loved. And now it knew how to wear me. I spent that whole day sitting at the kitchen table, every light in the house turned on, every blind pulled open. I didn't move much. I didn't eat. I didn't turn on music or the television. I didn't speak to anyone. My phone had stopped vibrating 2 days ago. I just watched the hallway. The basement door was shut, locked. I checked twice that morning, but I didn't trust it. The way I used to not trust things as a child, the closet at night, the open window, the slight shadow under the bed. I'd grown up thinking that kind of fear faded with age, but it hadn't. It had just changed shape. By dusk, the house began to creak again. I knew something was coming. I could feel it. That evening, Ray showed up for the first time in a week. Her knock was light, hesitant. When I opened the door, she looked like she'd aged 10 years. Her eyes were swollen, red. Her hoodie was stained with something that looked like ash. She didn't speak, just stepped inside and leaned against the wall. "I saw him," she said finally. "Connor." She nodded, biting her lip so hard it turned white. "It wasn't him," she whispered. It smiled at me, said things he never would have said. It laughed in his voice. I think it's wearing him." I nodded. There wasn't anything left to say. She sat with me for a while. We shared silence like it was an old friend. Around midnight, I noticed her eyes drifting toward the hallway, toward the door. "Do you ever think about what it really wants?" I asked. Ray didn't respond right away. She lit a cigarette with shaky hands and stared at the smoke curling upward. "I think it wants to be let in," she said. "But more than that, I think it wants to be known. Like it wants us to see it. Number. Like it wants to see itself in us." I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. She left not long after, without another word. And I knew then, truly and fully, that I was going to be alone for whatever came next. The alarm came at 2:43 a.m. My phone buzzed violently against the table. The screen lit up with the now familiar phrase, "Do not open the door." The air thickened. The lights flickered once, then again. Then the humming started. But it didn't come from the basement this time. It came from everywhere. From the floorboards, from the ceiling, from the windows, from the air inside my lungs. It was inside me, and with it came the voice, my voice. "Eli," it said gently, lovingly, like I was a child being called home. "Eli, I need you. You have to come downstairs now." I pressed my hands over my ears. It didn't help. It echoed inside my skull. "You left the door open, Eli. You shouldn't have done that. It's your responsibility now. You have to finish what you started." I stumbled into the hallway. The basement door was open, not wide, just a sliver, enough to show the darkness beyond, enough to let me know it had won a little more ground. I stared at it, shaking. "You forgot to lock up, Eli," it cooed. "It's okay. We all make mistakes. But now you have to come. You have to understand." I moved without thinking. Maybe it had finally broken something in me. Maybe it was always going to happen. I don't know. But I stepped through the door. The stairs were longer than I remembered. They creaked under my weight, and the air got colder with every step. The humming grew louder, but it wasn't just sound anymore. It was a feeling, a pressure on my ribs, a weight behind my eyes. There were voices in the dark, but I couldn't make them out. They whispered just below hearing, as though they were speaking directly to my nerves. The light from above faded. The stairwell bent. I turned a corner and saw the door. Not the basement door. Another one. Metal, rusted, covered in scratches. There were handprints smeared across it, black and wet looking. It opened as I approached. No creak, just a breath like something exhaling. Inside was a room made of mirrors, hundreds of them. Tall, warped, some cracked, some fogged. They reflected me from every angle, except it wasn't me. Not really. Each version of me looked different. One had hollow eyes, another had no mouth. One bled from the ears, another stood perfectly still, smiling, and in the center of the room was a chair. Someone sat in it. I knew it was me, but not me. It looked up. "Welcome," it said. I took a step back. Every mirror image stepped forward. "You came a long way," it continued. "You asked so many questions, wanted to know what I was, who I was. You looked for answers. But here's the truth, Eli. I'm just the echo, the hollow, the thing you feed when you doubt." I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. "You let me in the moment you listened," it said. "Every time you wondered what was behind the door. Every time you cared about the voice. Every time you thought it might be real. That's all it takes. Curiosity is the invitation. Compassion is the key." The figure stood. "But don't worry, I'll keep you here, with me. You'll never be alone again." The mirrors pulsed, the air thickened. Then I ran. I don't remember how I got back up the stairs. I just remember the thudding of my feet, the pressure in my chest, the hum screaming now, so loud I thought my head would split open. I threw myself at the basement door, slammed it shut, locked every bolt, every latch, every hinge. Then I collapsed. I don't know how long I was unconscious, but when I woke, the sun was shining. Everything looked normal. The lights worked. The air was still. No humming. The basement door was shut. Every lock in place. It was over. I packed that morning, called my parents, told them I was coming home. Ray didn't answer my texts. Her unit was empty. I didn't look for Theo. I left before the sun could set, drove until the house was nothing but a shape in the rearview mirror. My parents didn't ask many questions. I think I looked too thin, too hollow. They gave me space, let me sleep. And for a while it was okay. Until last night. I was brushing my teeth when the bathroom mirror began to vibrate, and from somewhere just below my hearing, I heard it. "Eli, please, let me in." It was my voice, and I knew what was coming next. Tonight it will knock, and this time it will wear me better. This time I might answer, but I write this down now to remember who I am. Because if I forget, then I become just another echo, just another voice in the dark. And you, whoever finds this, you have to remember one thing. Don't listen. No matter who it sounds like. Don't open the door.